What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT, here with you late night, talking Buccaneers, Bills. The Bills get the win on Thursday Night Football, 24-18 over Tampa Bay. I got some thoughts on that. I got a lot of things to say about Michigan's ongoing scandal with them stealing signs. And I think potentially this is the last year that we are going to see Jim Harbaugh on Michigan sidelines as their head coach. I think after this is all settled, he's going to be back in the National Football League. I got some thoughts on Kirk Cousins being traded. We're going to talk Coach Prime and how to fix the NFL's bad officiating problem. I know we're really late tonight, but I ain't want to go to sleep without getting these things off my chest. So shout out to everybody in the chat that's tuned in tonight. Before we begin, if you haven't already, make sure that you leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We go live normally Monday through Wednesday and Thursday around 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. It's just that with midterms, they kind of have messed up with my live streaming schedule. So that's why we're going live so late. But after next week, we should have our live streaming schedule back in order. Listen to the JT Sports Podcast, available on all podcasting platforms. We are not just a YouTube channel. You can find every episode of the podcast available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and Amazon. Wherever you get your podcasts from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, leave us with a 5-star review. We will greatly appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, that also helps us out as well. All you got to do is type in the JT Sports Podcast on any podcasting platform, and it will pop up. Or you can go down to the description down below, and there will be the links to the Apple and Spotify versions of the podcast. Thursday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills take down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this was a very boring game. I fell asleep like 2 or 3 times watching this matchup because you never really questioned if the Bills were going to be able to win this game. They looked like the better team from the opening kickoff. And even though Tampa Bay in the fourth quarter, they were able to make things a little bit interesting. It was a one-possession game at the end due to the Buffalo Bills committing a good amount of penalties, which allowed the Buccaneers to keep their last drive alive, basically, and make this a one-score game. But the Buffalo Bills, they're just a way better team than Tampa Bay. And that was pretty apparent watching this game all night. The Bills' defensive line was getting after Baker Mayfield, and the Buccaneers' offensive line is not that great. Now, their offensive line isn't crappy, but anytime you're going up against one of the best defensive lines in the NFL and you got an average offensive line at best, your quarterback isn't going to have a lot of opportunities to throw the football. And the Buffalo Bills defensive line, although they are suffering a couple of injuries on that side, they got tons of depth at that position. You got Von Miller back fully healthy. You got Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa. There's just so much talent on that defensive line of the Buffalo Bills. Baker Mayfield, he didn't play bad. I felt like he played pretty well. It's just that nothing really was going for the Buccaneers offensively. They struggled to run the football effectively. They weren't good in converting in third down situations. And this is what you expect anytime you have an average offensive line going up against an elite defensive line. If you can't protect the quarterback, you're not going to be able to have a lot of success in third down situations because, and oftentimes, when you're in a third down situation, you're not in third and short. Either it's going to be third and long or it's going to be third and medium. And in those situations, you got to throw the football to pick up the first down. And if you can't give your quarterback time to throw the football, you're not going to have too much success on third down. Now, for Tampa Bay, my biggest takeaway from watching them lose this game is that I don't think you should write them off just yet. They have lost 3 straight games. They now are 3-4 on the year, but their next couple of games that they have coming up are pretty winnable. You got to play the Houston Texans, the Tennessee Titans, which you should be able to win. both of those two games, even though they're not give me's, they definitely are games that you have a good chance of being able to come away with wins in. Then you got the 49ers, which is a pretty tough game. Then after that, you got the Colts on the road and the Carolina Panthers. So there's a really good chance that the Buccaneers potentially could win 3 or maybe 4 of their next 5 games coming up. And this loss, I didn't feel like the Buccaneers looked like an awful team. It didn't look like they didn't belong on the field with the Buffalo Bills. It just was that the Buffalo Bills were just so much more talented than the Buccaneers. Anytime the Buffalo Bills got in the third down situation, they were picking it up. Josh Allen once again had a really good performance despite the early interception that he threw in this game. Buffalo went 7-13 on third down, and this offense was humming for the majority of this game until they got into the fourth quarter, where they kind of went a little bit flat, and that's what allowed the Buccaneers a little bit of an opportunity to get back in it. But the Buffalo Bills, man, this is just a really good team. And just watching this whole entire game, even when I was awake and I wasn't dozing off, I was just like, the Buffalo Bills just have this game in the palm of their hands. There's not really a single moment that I was watching this game and I was like, oh, damn, like the Buccaneers might have an opportunity to win this thing. The Buffalo Bills, they're one of those teams that they play up the competition and they tend to play down the competition at times. That's why they had that shocking loss to the New England Patriots last week. But anytime the Buffalo Bills are locked in and they're playing their best football, they still are one of the best teams in the NFL. And I think that the Buffalo Bills get a little bit overlooked when you look at how crowded the AFC conference is right now. You got the Ravens who are up there, who right now people are considering to be the best team in the league. You got Kansas City still, but you definitely have to give the Buffalo Bills a good chance at being able to make it out of the AFC also. I mean, Josh Allen still is playing at a top 3, top 5 level, and this defense is still performing at an elite level despite all the injuries that they're dealing with. Josh Allen, to his credit, I still think that he deserves to be in the MVP discussion against a really good Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Let's not overestimate how good the Buccaneers defense is. This is a really good defense. This is one of the better defenses in the NFL, and he carved this defense up. Him, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, the rookie tight end, Dalton Kincaid caught a touchdown in this game, which had me really excited because I have Dalton Kincaid currently starting on a lot of my fantasy football teams. So the Buffalo Bills, you know, they got a pretty solid win against a Bucs team that I don't think you should write off quite yet. The Buccaneers are in a pretty weak division. The Saints, I don't really think they're going to be all that good down the stretch. Dennis Allen isn't a good coach. Derek Carr is mid. The Carolina Panthers, obviously, they're out of it. They don't even have a win right now. You got the Falcons, who currently are in first place in this division, but with how inconsistent Desmond Ridder has been at taking care of the football, it definitely leaves the door cracked for the Buccaneers to have a chance at being able to get things back on track and possibly win this division. And don't count out the Bucs potentially being a 7th seed in the NFC. I don't think this team is bad. They got a great defense. Their offense is serviceable at times. Anytime the offensive line is able to give Baker Mayfield time to throw the football in, Baker Mayfield has played some really solid football up to this point this season. So my 2 biggest takeaways after watching this game is that, 1, don't count out the Buccaneers just yet. Their schedule is about to get very favorable over the next couple of weeks. And the Buffalo Bills, with how good this defense is and all the talent that they have on the defensive line, plus Josh Allen, you definitely should give them a little bit more consideration for being able to make it out of the AFC, because I don't think too many people have been talking about the Buffalo Bills being able to win this conference with how everybody is just salivating over Lamar Jackson and how he's played, and Patrick Mahomes still playing at a very high level, the Chiefs only having 1 loss. It's pretty easy to overlook Buffalo, even though they currently are in first place in the AFC East and they smacked the Miami Dolphins. I don't get why the Miami Dolphins get more attention than the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills are still running this division and they still run the Miami Dolphins. But the Bills get the win Thursday Night Football. 24-18. Michigan got caught cheating. They got caught stealing signs of their opponents. And Michigan fans are in denial about this. They make it seem like this isn't a big deal because everybody else is doing it. Yeah, you aren't the only team that's stealing signs. A good amount of other teams do it as well. But the problem is that you were stealing opposing team signs using illegal technology. Pretty much they were recording the teams using their signs, and they were bringing it back to Ann Arbor, and then they were using it to their advantage. And I'm not saying that this is the reason why Michigan football has kind of went on their recent run as late, being able to beat Ohio State 2 times back-to-back, being able to win the Big Ten Conference in back-to-back years, and appearing in the college football playoffs for the last 2 years also. I think that for Michigan, this is a really big issue for you. All right. Yeah, just because you steal signs, the other team still has to be able to make adjustments. TCU said that they kind of had a feeling that Michigan stole their signs, which is why they had to switch things up, but they had a whole month to prepare. You wonder why Ohio State couldn't do the same thing, and that's understandable. And you're not the only team doing this. Let's make that clear, but it's the fact about how you went getting these signs, which makes this a pressing issue. And that's why you right now are facing a lot of troubles from the NCAA. You see, Michigan fans keep making it seem like this isn't a big deal, and the media is just making this out to be a bigger issue than what it is. No, it is a big deal. They just got the FBI involved in this thing, and the NCAA has just appeared on Michigan's campus, and they're doing their investigation on the matter. The Big Ten also has launched their own private investigation. And there are Big Ten teams who came to the NCAA giving tons of video evidence about Michigan stealing these signs. So just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean that you should be excused of doing it, because the way that you're going about doing it is illegal. The problem in this whole situation that not enough people are talking about is that it's not the fact that Michigan was stealing signs, it's the fact that they were recording the thing. So apparently, Connor Stallions, a member of Michigan's staff, had bought tickets for over 30 to 35 games that included Big Ten opponents and potential teams that Michigan could be going up against in the college football playoffs, and he was using the cellular devices to record this, and that's why he right now suspended with pay, and that's why Michigan is currently under investigation for this whole entire scandal. And for me, I don't really have an issue with the whole sign stealing thing. My issue is that you got caught doing it, and now the fact that people want to make it seem like the NCAA is out to get Michigan. I'm not buying that shit. Okay, you got caught cheating. There's nothing wrong with trying to cheat. You know what they say? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. But it's the fact that, you kind of went a little bit overboard with it. It goes back to the whole Spygate thing with Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots decades ago. Everybody was doing the same thing the Patriots were doing. It's just that they took it to the extreme. And Michigan went to the extreme with this thing. Yeah, you can go and try to steal other team signs and try to get a little bit of an advantage, but you can't record it. And that's the problem that Michigan has right now. It's the fact that they went a little bit to the extreme of this thing, and now the coaches were upset with it, and the NCAA, they got tipped off, because it's not like the NCAA knew about this thing prior. There were coaches who have been feeding the NCAA evidence about what Michigan has been doing. And for Jim Harbaugh, he comes out, and of course he's going to deny him having any knowledge of this, but I just think that's a load of bullshit. You're the head coach. There's no way you don't have any knowledge of what was transpiring. You're the head coach of a big football program that gets a ton of attention. All right. So anytime you have guys like Connor Stallions on your staff doing these kinds of operations, you have a little bit of knowledge about what's going on. Now, did you know that they were going this overboard with it Probably not. But let's stop making it seem like Jim Harbaugh didn't know anything. You're the head coach of a football team. You should know everything that's going on within your operation. And this is kind of a little bit of me being a little bit naive for me to even say that Jim Harbaugh, maybe there was a little bit more to this that he didn't know about. But at the same time, I do think that he knew a little bit about what was going on. He's not innocent in the matter. Like, he released a statement on social media saying that they were going to corroborate. He didn't really have any knowledge of this. Like, this isn't the first time, Jim Harbaugh has gotten into trouble with the NCAA. The last time he got in trouble with the NCAA was due to him buying a recruit a hamburger, which people call Burgergate. And I felt like that was pretty unnecessary for the NCAA to kind of have to force him to self-impose a 3-4 game suspension due to him just buying a recruit a hamburger. But when it comes to this situation, Jim Harbaugh definitely was in the wrong in this situation. Like, he knew what was going on. When you're the head coach of a football program, you know everything that's going on with your program. And if you don't, that kind of shows you being a little bit incompetent of running a program, because you can't run a program and not know what the guys you hired are doing. You hired these guys for a reason. And even on Connor Stallion's LinkedIn profile, it just looks a little bit shady. Like, I'm really annoyed with Michigan fans trying to make it seem like this is being overblown. It's not being overblown. They got the FBI involved. You got the NCAA people on campus. Like, this is definitely a pressing issue. TCU came out and said that they knew about this. Big Ten schools said that they kind of had a suspicion about this going on, and they've been the people who've been giving you up. Now, it doesn't matter who snitched on you. It might have been Ohio State. It might have been Indiana, Rutgers. Who cares? Anytime you are a dominant program and you're dominating the conference, teams are going to be upset, not just with you just dominating, but if you are doing this, having a little bit of a slight advantage with the way that you're going about it, teams are going to be quick to rat you out. So I don't get this whole narrative that Michigan fans keep trying to pitch about how this is just being sensationalized by the media and they're just doing this for clicks. Like, if that's the case, why is the FBI now involved in this? You get what I'm saying? Like, Michigan has not been involved in too many controversies in the past prior to this year. Maybe the NCAA does have it out for Jim Harbaugh because he kind of made them look a little bit foolish, but it doesn't really matter because you got caught doing something that you had no business doing. You may not have been the only school stealing signs, but you were one of the only schools going about this in the way that you did, using technology to do so, which is forbidden. It's illegal. And I think that the punishment is going to be pretty severe when it comes to how this is all going to transpire. Like, we all know that the NCAA, they're really inconsistent with how they respond and react to scandals and investigations. Sometimes they can give teams a slap on the wrist. Like, Tennessee was paying players, giving them money in McDonald's bags, and they got a slap on the wrist. They didn't get any postseason bans. You look at the situation with Baylor, though, with Art Briles, like nearly a decade ago, they got hit pretty hard, in my opinion. Just because the NCAA has gone a little bit soft over the last couple of years on their punishment doesn't mean that you're going to get the same luxury. And you got to remember that Jim Harbaugh already kind of has been a target of the NCAA. So now they finally got a reason to really bring the hammer down on you. And even if Jim Harbaugh leaves and he departs for the NFL, you're still going to have to serve whatever punishment you get, even with the new head coach. Yeah, it's a little bit messed up that Jim Harbaugh will leave and, not take the punishment along with you because he's also guilty in this situation. But for Michigan, I don't think you're just going to get a slight tap on the wrist. Like, they have way too many people involved in this. Anytime you get the feds involved, this becomes a very serious matter. And then there are other Big Ten schools who are upset who've been ratting you out. So I don't think they're going to be okay with you just getting a slap on the wrist. Now, There's some rumors that say that maybe the college football playoff committee could take things into their own hands. I don't really think that's going to happen. Like, I don't really think that's the committee's territory. Hell, they can barely get the teams right when it comes to the rankings when they get released. So I definitely don't trust them to be able to handle this situation in the best way. I think for Michigan, the best case scenario for you is maybe you don't get a postseason ban. Maybe you got to pay some fines. Maybe if Jim Harbaugh comes back, he gets suspended for maybe half the season. But I definitely think that the NCAA is going to come down pretty hard on you. I mean, this dude, Connor Stallions, was buying tickets to watch Tennessee play, because maybe Michigan possibly could have been matched up against Tennessee. So he gets a couple of guys to go to the Tennessee games and record their signs. And maybe if they would have went up against them, they would have used that information. But they definitely tried to use it against TCU, and TCU switched it up on them. I don't think this is one of those situations that the NCAA is just coming down on Michigan just because they're hating on Michigan for Jim Harbaugh making them look foolish. Like, Big Ten teams tipped off the NCAA. If you go and you read the articles and you read the reports, this investigation kind of got started because there were Big Ten schools that got a little bit of whiff that Michigan had some staff members in attendance recording with their cell phones their signs and using it against them. And even though, even if you know what's coming, you still have to be able to stop it, like what Coach Prime said. At the end of the day, it's still an advantage. Rather, if it was advantageous to you or proved to be a disadvantage, you still got caught cheating. And when you get caught cheating, when you do the crime, you got to do the time. And Michigan fans, like, you guys are some really good fans, and this isn't an indictment against you. I mean, you didn't do anything wrong in the situation. You didn't get caught cheating. The team that you root for did, and therefore they should be getting some pretty costly penalties for this. It's not the fact that you're not the only team doing it. It's the fact that you went overboard with it. And anytime you go overboard with something and you get a slight advantage over somebody and you're also very dominant, people are going to come for you. You're going to have a target on your back. There was already a target on Michigan's back for them being back-to-back Big Ten champions. And now you go out and you get caught stealing signs, and there is video evidence. Like, people keep saying, where's the evidence at? This investigation got started because Big Ten teams were sending the NCAA evidence of what you were doing. So what you mean, where's the evidence at? You making it seem like the NCAA is just doing this just because they have it out for you. Like, I don't think the NCAA has any reasons to try to have a grievance against Michigan. I don't really think it's that deep. I think that the NCAA, they're doing their job. And even though they pick and choose when they want to do their job, when you got a lot of teams giving you information and a lot of teams writing you out, of course they got to step in. And even the Big Ten Conference has their own internal investigation going on into the matter. So with so many parties involved, you got the FBI involved, the NCAA involved, your own conference doing their own investigation. I don't think you're just going to get a simple slap on the wrist anymore. I definitely think that there are going to be some hefty prices to pay for this. And I definitely think that, without a doubt, Jim Harbaugh is going to be on his way out after this situation. And I don't blame him. Like, he probably doesn't want to keep continuing to deal with this. And if you're going to have some sanctions imposed on you, maybe you get a reduction in scholarships, maybe you get a postseason ban. Like, why would he stay when he's already been flirting with the NFL? And that goes into my next point. With this whole sign stealing investigation going on, I think that Jim Harbaugh, without a doubt, is in his final season as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. He's already been flirting with the NFL the last couple of off seasons. Of course, we know he was very interested in getting the Minnesota Vikings head coaching job not too long ago, but they picked Kevin O'Connell after him. The Denver Broncos reached out to him before they went ahead and signed Sean Payton to that lucrative deal. I think it's only a matter of time before we see Jim Harbaugh back in the National Football League. And for you Michigan fans that say, oh, he's going to stay, I mean, why would he want to stay with everything that's going on? Like, if the worst case scenario happens and you get a postseason ban, you get some sanctions, and you get some scholarships revoked, that puts you at a disadvantage. And it kind of would make it a little bit harder for Jim Harbaugh to continue to have the success that he has had over the last couple of years if you get the worst case punishment due to your sign stealing scandal. And this was a similar situation that played out with Pete Carroll a long time ago. Now, although he didn't get caught for stealing signs, he got caught, and that USC program got caught for a bunch of other things. And when it got too hot for Pete Carroll, guess what happened? He dipped for the NFL. And Jim Harbaugh, I believe that he has a lot of unfinished business in the National Football League. Remember, he lost the Super Bowl to his brother, and his brother has bragging rights over him. And I think that Jim Harbaugh has a hard time sleeping at night knowing that he lost to his brother in the Super Bowl. Hell, if I lost to my little brother in the Super Bowl, I would want to get some revenge. I would also want to have a little bit of bragging rights. Imagine Thanksgiving or Christmas comes around and John and Jim Harbaugh just chatting it up, and then they start getting into a little bit of a debate about who's the better coach, and then your brother brings out his Super Bowl ring. He's like, man, like, I got this Super Bowl ring over you. I beat you in the Super Bowl. Like, of course Jim Harbaugh wants to get back into the NFL and try to see if he can do what his brother was able to do. I don't think that Jim Harbaugh has anything left to prove in college football other than winning a national championship. Now, even if Michigan doesn't win a national championship, yeah, it kind of would hurt, but I still think that Jim Harbaugh would be on his way out. Now, if you win a national championship, it would be the perfect story because you'll have a guy who played at this university, was really good playing for Michigan when he was the quarterback here, and then he ends up coming back years later, taking over the reins of a program that kind of was a little bit forgotten in the college football landscape, brings them back to national relevance, leads them to a national championship. He pretty much completed his mission. And why not go on and finish the mission in the National Football League by trying to win a Super Bowl? Jim Harbaugh, he definitely is going to have a lot of suitors out there. The Chicago Bears, it looks like Matt Eberflus is going to be on his way out. Maybe the Carolina Panthers could have an opening, and there could be a couple of other intriguing job openings depending on how the remainder of this NFL season goes. But I think Jim Harbaugh probably is going to be dipping once this whole season settles and this whole investigation ends up having more information to come to light, because it just keeps getting worse and worse for Michigan. We keep having more information coming out about what teams knew Michigan was stealing their signs. Ohio State, Indiana, Rutgers, whoever ratted Michigan out. I mean, we don't really know who snitched on Michigan in this situation, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, Michigan got caught doing something that they had no business doing. And it's not about, Michigan stealing the signs. It's about how they went about stealing the signs. You can't record another team bringing in their plays with their signs. That's just against the rules. Just because other teams are doing it, cool. But anytime you go overboard with it and it gives your team an advantage that other teams don't have, it's a problem. Versus, it doesn't matter if the plays that you knew were coming worked or not. I mean, you still got caught cheating at the end of the day. And for Jim Harbaugh, the good thing for him is that he doesn't really have to deal with any of the repercussions that comes from this. Even though he is in denial of having any knowings about this going about, I think that's completely bullshit. Like, you're the head coach. You should know everything that's going on with your program, from the players to the coaches. Now, you may not know every intricacy and every detail, but when it comes to something as serious as this, I'm pretty sure Jim Harbaugh knew a little bit about what Connor Stallions was doing. So the whole statement about him coming out having no knowledge about this, I think it's just complete blasphemy. And this isn't the first time that Jim Harbaugh has lied to the NCAA. Like, he lied to the NCAA about buying and recruiting hamburger, even though, like, that was a little bit petty on their part to make him have to suspend himself for a couple of games about it. He still lied about it. So why should the NCAA trust him? And even though he is saying that he's cooperating with the NCAA, like, of course you're going to cooperate because you know that you're going to have another opportunity in the National Football League. You're not going to have to deal with any of the punishment that come from this. Same thing with Pete Carroll. Like, I'm pretty sure Pete Carroll denied any knowledge of what was going on with USC, even though, like, if you're buying players, obviously, if you're the head coach, you're in the forefront of that. And Jim Harbaugh, you have to hire these guys and you give these guys a job. Now, maybe Jim Harbaugh didn't know that Connor Stallions was going to the games and recording these signs from these teams in the fashion that he was, but I just find it pretty hard to believe that Jim Harbaugh was just completely left in the dark about what somebody on his coaching staff was doing. I think Jim Harbaugh has his hands dirty, just about as dirty as everybody else who's involved in this operation for Michigan, and I don't blame him for departing for the NFL. Do you? Because if I was Jim Harbaugh and I got caught cheating and the NFL comes offer me an opportunity to coach, I'm leaving. Because why would I stay out of school, have to deal with the punishment that's going to hinder me from being able to continue to have the level of dominance that I have had in the past, when I can just go ahead and get rid of this whole entire situation by just leaving? And plus, for Jim Harbaugh, he already has done God's work with this program. The only two things I knew about Michigan football prior to him taking over as the head coach was Denard Robinson, that one season that he was going off for Michigan, and that quarterback named Devin Gardner who was wearing number 98. Outside of those two things, I didn't really hear too much about Michigan football. He brought this program up from the ashes. The recruiting has improved tremendously. The on-the-field product has improved tremendously. And even if he doesn't win the national championship, I think the job is pretty much done for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. It's time to come back to the NFL. And plus, coaching in the NFL is a lot more easier than coaching in college football, because you don't have to worry about recruiting 24/7. Recruiting is something that you have to do every single day, nonstop, anytime you have time to do it. And you don't really get too much time to spend with your family because of you having to be on the road or having to send guys on the road to do it for you. I think coaching in the NFL is a lot less time consuming, because all you got to do is worry about managing the players on your team, hiring the right guys, and just making sure that you're up to snuff with your X's and O's. And Jim Harbaugh, his first couple of years when he was the head coach of the 49ers, people seem to forget that they were really dominant. They went to 3 straight NFC championship games, including a Super Bowl, which he lost to his brother. And there's no way that him losing to his brother, John Harbaugh, can sit well with him. I definitely think that he wants to get back into the National Football League and try to have another crack at winning a championship. With this whole entire sign stealing scandal going on, I think Jim Harbaugh is definitely going to be on his way out. And from what some people tell me, him and the AD already kind of have a little bit of a rocky relationship. Now, I don't know how true that is, because I'm not going to act like I'm just this diehard Michigan insider and I know everything that's going on with the program. So if you're a Wolverines fan, you kind of give me a little bit of some insight about the relationship between Jim Harbaugh and the AD. But for Jim Harbaugh, it's you already flirted with the NFL the last couple of off seasons, even though you probably didn't really consider taking a Denver Broncos job because Russ is cooked right now. I wouldn't consider taking that thing either. You definitely were looking at trying to become the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. And with everything that's going on, if you got the opportunity to bounce ship, why not take it? So Jim Harbaugh, I think he most definitely is going to be leaving for the NFL. I expect this to be his final season at Michigan. I would be incredibly surprised if he ends up staying as the head coach of Michigan football, because this is a sinking ship right now. I don't think that the NCAA is about to just give Michigan a slap on the wrist. They have way too many people involved in this thing for it to just be a slight punishment. And I think that if the punishment isn't severe enough to the other Big Ten teams there's going to be a lot of animosity, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be protesting against it. People make it seem like the NCAA just randomly found this out. The NCAA didn't just randomly find out that Michigan was still in signs. They got tipped off. So if they got tipped off, that means that these coaches are expecting some kind of punishment. And I don't think they're going to be okay with just a couple of fines and a couple of suspensions here or there. I definitely expect for them to be a postseason ban. And I definitely expect for some scholarship reductions to be included in whatever the punishment is going to be. Anytime you get the FBI involved, you can't just have no slight punishment. And I know that the NCAA has been inconsistent with their punishment in the past, but I think with this one, they're going to come down pretty hard on Michigan. Now, I don't think that they're going to get the death penalty or anything like that. I don't think Jim Harbaugh is completely going to ruin Michigan football like that. But I definitely think that with everything that's going on with this scandal, I don't see any reason why Jim Harbaugh would stay. Like, why would you stay and have to deal with punishments and deal with being handicapped when you can just go to the NFL and have no limitations? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Jim Harbaugh, I expect him to be coaching somewhere on somebody's sidelines in the NFL next year. And I'm looking forward to him coming back to the NFL. Hopefully it's the Carolina Panthers, because God knows Bryce Young needs some way better coaching than what he's getting right now with the Carolina Panthers. A lot of people in the national media keep throwing out this take that the Minnesota Vikings need to trade Kirk Cousins. Why should the Minnesota Vikings trade away Kirk Cousins when he's playing some of the best football of his career? Look, Kirk Cousins is 35 years old. Yes, he's getting up there in age, but we've seen plenty of quarterbacks play high-level football deep into their 40s. Like, Tom Brady was damn near 50 when he retired, and he was still playing at a pretty high level. Aaron Rodgers is 40-something years old, and he still was playing at a serviceable level. Like, Kirk Cousins still has a lot of great football left in him. And the Minnesota Vikings trading away Kirk Cousins because of age, I don't really think that's a big reason for them to have to move on from him. It's not like the other rookie quarterbacks that they're going to be in contention to get are going to be able to come in and just prove to be an upgrade from Kirk Cousins right away. If you're not in the Caleb Williams or Drake May sweepstakes, then there's no reason why you should even entertain the idea of trading away Kirk Cousins, because the other quarterbacks in this upcoming draft class are being severely overhyped. And I've said that previous occasions on this podcast that many people are overhyping this 2024 quarterback class. They make it seem like if you got a guy like a Dak Prescott or a Kirk Cousins and you got the opportunity to draft like a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix, you should just move on from those guys and draft one of those guys. Like, these upcoming quarterback prospects, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to come into the National Football League and just instantly have success, even though they're going to be going into a pretty good situation. And Kirk Cousins has been playing at damn near a top 5 level this year. Now, even if you don't agree that he's been playing at a top 5 level, he's definitely been playing at a top 10 level. And this is with him playing behind a garbage offensive line. Yes, he has a really good group of wide receivers to throw the football to, but Kirk Cousins gets a lot of big hits. Every single game I watch the Minnesota Vikings playing, like, Kirk Cousins is getting plowed, and he's still throwing absolute dimes despite him taking a lot of big hits. So for the Minnesota Vikings, I ask you this: if you do want to trade away Kirk Cousins, are you really confident that whichever quarterback you're going to land in the NFL draft is going to prove to be an immediate upgrade? Because these quarterback prospects, you don't really know how they're going to plan out. And if you can't get a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, I don't really think it makes a lot of sense trading away Kirk Cousins. And even if you do have to draft a young quarterback and you just want to plan for the future, I still think it makes sense to keep Kirk Cousins around. You give Kirk Cousins a 2-3 year extension, because right now he's expected to become an unrestricted free agency at the season's end. So if you're going to draft a young quarterback, I think it would make sense to keep Kirk Cousins on the roster so he could mentor that guy and allow that young quarterback to have a little bit of time to grow and learn. Trading away Kirk Cousins, I don't think does the Minnesota Vikings any favors. And you're not going to get a first-round pick for him. The guy is 35 years old at most. You get a high-end second and third-round pick for Kirk Cousins. I don't really think that's worth it. Now, if a team comes at you and they're like, hey, we'll give you a top 10 pick, or we'll give you a first-round selection for Kirk Cousins if you give him to us, then I think it makes the offer a little bit more interesting. You definitely listen, but it's hard to find a top 12 quarterback. Top 12 quarterbacks don't just grow on trees. Like, I know we like to shit on Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott for being, above average quarterbacks and not being considered elite for the majority of their careers. But a lot of people don't understand just how hard it is to find a Kirk Cousins or a Dak Prescott caliber quarterback. You can win a Super Bowl with a guy like Kirk Cousins. You may or may not be able to win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott, depending on the situation with your team. But even then, how many quarterbacks get drafted in the first round and end up panning out? Look at Justin Fields. We still don't really know how good he is. Look at Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. There are way more quarterbacks that end up being busts that get drafted in the first round than those who don't. And even if you do got a good situation, there's no guarantee that guy's going to work out. Trey Lance was playing on one of the best rosters in the whole entire National Football League, and he still ended up becoming a bust. Like, trading away Kirk Cousins would be a huge mistake by the Minnesota Vikings, because I promise you, it's really hard to find a suitable replacement for a guy playing at the level that Kirk Cousins has been playing at this season. And even when you look at Kirk Cousins' career from a wide view angle, he wasn't even the first round pick. Neither was Dak Prescott. So it already is hard to find a top 12 high-end quarterback in the first round. It's even harder to find a starting caliber quarterback in the rounds after the first round. The Minnesota Vikings would be making a huge mistake trading away Kirk Cousins, and I don't get why the media just continues to push this narrative that the Vikings have to trade Kirk Cousins. People making it seem like the Vikings have no wins, like the Vikings right now have started to turn their season around. I don't think Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings general manager want to throw the white flag on the season when they still have a great opportunity to make it into the postseason. Like, nobody should be throwing the towel in when their season is how the Minnesota Vikings is right now, still having a lot to play for. Now, if you were the Chicago Bears or the Carolina Panthers or the Arizona Cardinals and you desperately needed a quarterback, then hell yeah, you go ahead and you throw in the white flag and you go ahead and try to tank for one. But the Minnesota Vikings tanking for a quarterback right now where they kind of are still in the playoff race makes absolutely no sense. And there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to hit on whoever you draft in next year's quarterback class. I mean, outside of Drake May and Caleb Williams, a lot of these quarterback prospects are really shaky. And I don't think that too many people are giving Kirk Cousins his fair due of respect. The fact that people say, oh yeah, Kirk Cousins is a top 10 quarterback, he's been playing at a really high level this year, the Vikings need to trade him where his value is still high, really just blows my damn mind, because why are you trading away a good quarterback? Good quarterbacks just don't grow on trees. I know everybody is enamored with having an elite quarterback. Everybody wants a Patrick Mahomes, a Justin Herbert, a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, but you can still win with a Kirk Cousins at quarterback. The 49ers went to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo outplayed Patrick Mahomes for 4 quarters and 7 minutes in that Super Bowl. If he never misses that throw to Emmanuel Sanders and the 49ers end up winning that Super Bowl, we have an entirely different conversation about Jimmy Garoppolo. Kirk Cousins is a good enough quarterback that he can lead you to a championship if you got the right pieces around him. It's very hard to find a high-end quarterback like a Kirk Cousins in the National Football League. I promise you that if Kirk Cousins was a free agent right now, nearly half of the NFL would be banking or begging at his knees to sign him. There's a reason why the New York Jets went out there and begged for Aaron Rodgers to come to the Big Apple. You need a great quarterback to be able to win in today's league. And Kirk Cousins, he may not be an elite quarterback, but he definitely is a really good quarterback. And it's hard to find really good in this league. There are more average to below average quarterbacks in the NFL than there are good quarterbacks. And even if you do trade Kirk Cousins, for the team that trades Kirk Cousins, you're not going to be able to start this dude right away. You're going to have to wait a couple of weeks for him to learn the system. And by the time he learns the system, there's no guarantee that you're still going to be in playoff contention by that time. So I don't think making a mid-season trade for a quarterback like Kirk Cousins really does you all that much favor if you're a team like the New York Jets. Like the New York Jets right now, I think they're better off sticking with Zach Wilson than they are trading for Kirk Cousins. And the reason why I say that is because there's no way a guy like Kirk Cousins is going to come in and just master the system in 1 or 2 weeks. Hell, if you watch the Netflix quarterback documentary series, he even said that he kind of had a little bit of some growing pains his first couple of games learning Kevin O'Connell's system because it was a new system. It takes a little bit of getting used to. So if he struggled to learn Kevin O'Connell's system for the first couple of weeks into last year's season, what makes you think that he's going to go to a team like the New York Jets and instantly pick up the playbook and get it? It doesn't work like that. This isn't Madden when you just trade for somebody and you start them and they just play good right away. This is the National Football League. This is real life. Minnesota trading away Kirk Cousins would be a grave mistake on their part. And to be honest with you, I don't get why they would, even if you do plan on drafting a quarterback. I think the best case scenario for the Minnesota Vikings would be keeping Kirk Cousins, giving him a 2-3 year extension, and then drafting a quarterback in the first round if you really do want to draft a quarterback and look to get younger at that position. But I think that the Vikings have way more pressing issues than worrying about trying to rebuild right now. Getting a new quarterback isn't going to fix the damn offensive line, and you still need some more talent on defense. Anytime a big-time recruit commits to Colorado, there always are people in the comment section saying, I don't know why that dude's committing to Colorado. Coach Prime ain't going to be there for too long. Listen, if Deion Sanders ends up leaving Colorado, guess what's going to happen? The recruits that committed to Colorado, they're going to follow Coach Prime. You see, when people commit to Colorado, let's just be honest, they're not committing to the school. They're committing to play for Deion Sanders. And anytime a recruit commits to a coach, they're going to follow the coach because they committed because of the coach. Deion Sanders is the program. No program is bigger than Deion Sanders, at least right now. Now, maybe if he goes to a school like Alabama or Florida, or FSU or Miami, hypothetically, then it's a different situation. But when you look at the resources that Deion Sanders has at Colorado, it's hard to pitch recruits on the idea of playing in Boulder, Colorado. Like, Colorado hasn't been able to have success recruiting since Coach Prime got there. Before Coach Prime got there, they weren't bringing in top 15, top 25 recruiting classes. It's not like Colorado is a hotbed that a lot of people dream of playing for. The only reason people are committing to Colorado is because of Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders, the fact that he's a Hall of Famer, he's one of the most marketable athletes of all time, is a large reason why it's easy to get recruits to commit to the school. You see, Deion Sanders is the program. He is the resources, if that makes sense. Now, if he goes to a school like Texas A&M that has more superior resources, then all it does is make things easier for him. You see, anytime people come at me and they be like, oh, JT, like, these recruits are making a big mistake committing to Colorado when he's going to leave, I just tell them, we got the transfer portal for a reason. When Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma, guess who went with them? Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams went to USC as well. We've seen plenty of times coaches leave a program and the players follow suit. Like, people make it seem like these players, once they commit to Colorado, they're stuck there. No, they're not. Like, at Jackson State, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, they committed to Jackson State not because of Jackson State, but because of Deion Sanders. And when Deion Sanders left Jackson State for Colorado, guess who came with them? Shedeur, Travis Hunter, and half of the recruits that committed to Coach Prime. Coach Prime is the program. He's Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders doesn't need all these luxurious resources or facilities to get commits to want to play for him. His name itself is good enough to get a handful of recruits to just listen to him. When Deion Sanders knocks on your parents' door, your mom, your dad, your grandpa, your grandma, your great auntie knows who Deion Sanders is. No other program has this kind of luxury at head coach, maybe outside of Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. And even then, a good amount of people who don't really follow college football like that don't know who the hell Nick Saban and Kirby Smart are. But everybody and their mama knows who Deion Sanders is. Deion Sanders, don't get it twisted. Yes, Colorado has some nice facilities, and it is a very nice institution. People are going to play for Deion Sanders. Now, you may have a couple of recruits that just fall in love with the university and the campus or whatnot. That's cool, but people are kind of overthinking this thing. Like, I just think people are just trying to find a way to find any ammunition to use against Colorado and trying to find any reason to hate on Colorado. Anytime they get a big-time recruit, oh, they're making a mistake, he's going to leave. So what? He leaves, they're leaving with him. Like, how do you think Travis Hunter and Shedeur got to Colorado? Even though Deion Sanders is his boy, I mean, how you think Travis Hunter got there? Half of Jackson State's roster entered the transfer portal and followed him to Colorado. The only players who aren't going to transfer when Deion Sanders leaves Colorado, if he leaves, are the players that Deion Sanders is going to tell, like, I don't really know if we're going to have a spot for you. If Deion Sanders goes to a school like Texas A&M, the whole roster can't follow him to Texas A&M. There's not going to be enough space for everybody. So, of course, a couple of guys are going to get left behind. But if you're a top 5, top 10 recruit at your position, Coach Prime is definitely going to bring your ass along for the ride. When he first got hired by Colorado, what did he say? I'm bringing my luggage, and it's Louis. So, of course, if he gets hired by Texas A&M, he's going to bring his Louis Vuitton luggage with him. He's going to bring that top 5 quarterback that just committed, that's part of that 2025 class, and a lot of other recruits with them. Coach Prime is the program. Coach Prime is bigger than the majority of half of the college football programs out there, outside of the big name brands like Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Alabama, Texas A&M, Florida, and Miami, and USC. Outside of those couple of schools, like anywhere Coach Prime goes, like he's going to be the program. He's going to be the facilities. He's going to be the resources. Why do commits go to Colorado? Because of Coach Prime. I think it's pretty simple. So I don't get why this narrative keeps getting thrown out, or why this question keeps going and asked, should recruits be worried about Coach Prime leaving? No, we got the transfer portal for a reason. If you like a coach and you get attached to a head coach, guess what you can do? You can enter the transfer portal, and if that coach wants you to come along with them, you can go along with them. Deion Sanders potentially leaving Colorado shouldn't really be a big concern that a good amount of people are trying to make it out to be. Like, it's not that hard to put your name in the transfer portal and follow him wherever he goes. The officiating in the NFL has reached all-time levels of bad, and I have a really good fix to this solution, all right? I think that with the use of AI technology being prevalent in the NFL, how they're using it for Amazon Next Gen stats, and how more NFL teams are using it to, get a better understanding of what their opponents are doing, I think that it only makes sense to introduce AI referees. Why not have a robot as a referee calling flags on the play? Now, you still will have a good amount of errors, but you'll have less errors than what you would get from human referees. I just think that it only makes sense to start utilizing the AI technology and eventually make an AI computer that can be programmed to learn what's pass interference, what's offsides, and we'll have a way better chance of getting better officiating from a robot than we will human officials. We get it. Humans make mistakes, but robots, I don't think they make as many mistakes as humans because they're just way more intelligent, and you can program an AI robot to be a fishy or to be an official. If the NFL wants to fix their bad officiating program, they need to start using that AI technology to create some AI referees that can be robots. You can put them somewhere on the sidelines, and they can have a little bit of a scanner or monitor. I don't know how they'll program this thing. All I know is that if you make an AI robot and you can program it to where it can understand what certain calls should be called and when they should be called, then I think that it will be an upgrade over the current officials that you have. A lot of these officials, I don't know what the hell they be seeing, but they be missing a lot of blatant calls. Now, if you don't like the whole AI robot proposal, then I think that we should go with what Jim Irsay said and allow challenge flags to be thrown the last 2 minutes of games. I mean, why is it that the NFL has forbidden challenges from the last 2 minutes being thrown? It makes no sense to me. You should be able to throw a flag at any point of the game. I should be able to throw a flag the last 2 minutes of a game if there's a disputable call. And I should also be able to challenge penalties. Like, if we know that the NFL officials make a lot of mistakes, we should be able to challenge their mistakes. It just makes no sense that the NFL doesn't allow challenge flags to be thrown during the last 2 minutes. What's the difference between the last 2 minutes of the game versus the other 13 minutes of the fourth or third or whatever quarter that's being played? It makes no sense to me. You should be able to throw a flag anytime you fucking want to. It shouldn't matter if it's the opening kickoff and something happens, you should be able to throw a flag then. And you should be able to throw a flag the last 2 minutes of a game if a bad call gets called. And just like with these referees making, bad mistakes, the NFL comes out and says that, yeah, like, we know that there was a mistake made by the refs. We acknowledge it. Like, okay, you acknowledge the mistake, but what does that change? Change the rules. Stop coming out and apologizing for mistakes. If you're going to apologize for mistakes, you should just go ahead and overturn the results. If you're going to come out and say that, yeah, we know that Indianapolis got screwed, we apologize for that, you should go ahead and just change the outcome. If you're just going to apologize for it, what the fuck is the point of apologizing for something that you're not going to change? I just think that if you're the NFL, you need to do one or two things. Even allow calls that get or flags that get thrown by the referees to be challenged, or you should allow coaches to throw their challenge flags during the last 2 minutes of games. It's stupid that only the booth can review and decide what should be challenged. That makes no sense to me. If I'm a head coach, I would be at the NFL office every single day protesting for challenge flags to be allowed to be thrown by the head coach during the last 2 minutes of games. It only makes sense. I mean, like, there are bad calls all throughout 60 minutes of an NFL game. So why is it that you can't challenge any the last 2 minutes? Like, these referees miss pass interference calls, holding penalties. If they're humans and they make mistakes, then they should be able to be challenged at any point of the game. Nobody cares about how long it takes for the game to finish up. The games already take as long as they do anyway because of all the damn commercials. So if these games are already long and they're getting dragged out, imagine how faster this process can be if instead we got these referees wasting 5-7 minutes of our time, like we got all day to be watching some damn football, while they take all day to decide what's a catch and what's not a catch. I think you can just fix this whole bad officiating problem by just getting some AI referees in there. You get you some robots, you program it to learn what's a holding penalty, what's a false start, what's pass interference, all that hoopla, and allow them to replace human referees. Now, I know that this idea is really scary because then that will put more reliance on AI, and a lot of people are already concerned about how AI could take over the world and stuff like that. It's like everybody thinks that the AI robots are going to be like how it was in Age of Ultron. I don't think that the AI robots are going to go haywire and take us all out of the world. And even though you are going to have some errors with the AI robots, I believe that you'll have less errors with the AI robot referees than you do with the human officials. These human officials are like Stevie Wonder at times. They got on their damn sunglasses and they can't see a touchdown for a touchdown. They can't see a catch for a catch. They miss obvious holding penalties, false start penalties. Like, there were a good amount of penalties that didn't get called in the Miami Dolphins 31-17 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. And although I feel like blaming the referees is a little bit of a cop-out, at the end of the day, if you don't want the referees to dictate the outcome of games, don't allow the games to be close. That's what my high school coach used to always tell us anytime we wanted to get mad at the referees for a loss. If you don't want the referees to dictate the outcome of the game, don't allow these games to be close. Now, I know that's not realistic because majority of NFL games come down to one possession. But, you know, if we're going to have these officials making mistakes, I'd rather it be an AI robot. I just think that with the AI robots, they won't miss certain calls. They'll just be more privy to certain things that should be called that the referees that are humans obviously miss. I just think that AI robots would fix the whole officiating fiasco that's going on in the National Football League and even college football. But if you're not on board with the whole AI robot referees, I think that everybody should be on board with allowing head coaches to throw the challenge flag the last 2 minutes of the games and allowing these coaches to be able to challenge calls. You should be able to challenge a holding penalty. You should be able to challenge a face mask penalty. If the referee missed the call, it shouldn't just be it. Like, if I'm a head coach and I see a defensive player grab my player's face mask and it not be called, I should be able to throw my challenge flag out and say, hey, man, like, you missed that damn face mask. Go look at the replay. They look at the replay for almost every single thing. They look at the replay for obvious touchdowns. They look at the replays for obvious catches. So why can't I throw my challenge flag for you to go ahead and review a call that you missed? It makes no sense. And another thing that I think could also help the bad officiating is making these officials have to have a post-game press conference. Like, these referees are able to F up the outcome of games. They're able to F up our parlays, and they don't get no accountability for it. There's no accountability for making a bad call if you're a ref. If you have some post-game press conferences and these referees are able to get asked questions about why they missed certain calls or why they called certain pass interference penalties or whatever, I think that it would make them a little bit more accountable. It would put a little bit more pressure on them for them to get certain calls right and not to miss certain things. You're a referee. Your job should be calling penalties. It's not that hard. You should be able to challenge a referee missing an obvious face mask. You should be able to challenge, controversial roughing the passer penalties. Like, you don't even know what is roughing the passer anymore. You put too much of your body weight on a quarterback, it's a flag. You hit a quarterback up high, it's a flag. You hit a quarterback up low, it's a flag. Like, damn near everything is a flag. Now, although the NFL hasn't made the job easier for officials with them always changing the rules due to player safety, I just think that at this point, we already are trending towards being so reliant on AI technology. If the majority of NFL teams are using it and the league is using it for next-gen stats, then why aren't we using this thing to have better officiating? Get some damn AI robots out there, program them to learn what the hell are certain penalties and when they should be called, and let's just get rid of the human officials. If I'm going to have to lose a game due to a mistake by a referee, I'd rather have it due to a mistake from a AI robot ref than it being a human ref. At least if a mistake gets made by an AI referee, you can go ahead, give it a little bit of an update and correct it. But these human officials, they don't correct any of their mistakes. There are bad calls every single week. And although these robots are going to have some missed calls and some bad calls themselves, I just trust their judgment a lot more than I trust the judgment of these damn referees. Like, I be thinking these referees really be having money into these games. And I know that a lot of these referees may not have it, but I mean, let's not act like these referees aren't trying to come up on some easy bread also, and it's not easy to rig some of these games, especially if they're close. Just fix the whole damn problem and get some damn robots in there. Robots are already taking over the world as it is. We're using them in stores. Hell, I was in class the other day and somebody did a story about how a principal now has an AI robot assisting him to run the school. So if we got AI robots helping principals run the school, we should be having AI robots that can help the NFL fix their bad officiating problem. And they don't even need the make AI referees. All they really need is to have some AI assistants on the field to help referees know when they miss certain calls or when they aren't able to pick up details on certain things. Like, these referees, you damn near might think that they're legally blind with half the damn calls that they miss. I don't know. You guys let me know how you guys feel about AI robots as referees in the NFL, because I think that this will solve half of the bad officiating problems that we get. Yeah, I know that it's not going to be perfect, but no referee is going to be perfect. Rather, if they're human, go robotic. But I'd rather have a machine out there, because at least you can program machines to the point where they should be able to pick up nearly everything. Now, how would you program that? I don't know. I'm not an engineer. You can find a way to make it work. They got an AI robot helping the principal run the school. You mean to tell me that they can't make an AI robot that can help call penalties? You guys let me know how you guys feel about this. Am I tripping? Should we have some AI referees? This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I apologize for this live stream being so late. It's just that I've been having so many damn midterms finally, the midterms are over, so I should be back live streaming around 10 p.m. Eastern time. We still are going to live stream late after the Thursday, Monday night, and Sunday night games just because it just makes sense. Like, if I'm going to get my reaction to a game, I might as well go ahead and do it live when it just got done happening. If you guys enjoyed tonight's episode of the podcast, leave us with a 5-star review. We're not just a YouTube channel. Every episode in its entirety can be found on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. Wherever you get your podcast from, the JT Sports Podcast is available. Also, leave a like and subscribe to the channel on your way out. Helps with the algorithm. And I will see you guys shortly with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.